So yeah, we're finally done with the Odyssey. Uh, and yeah, I want to kind of get your take on it. I mean, in some ways, it's sort of weird to read old, very old things, and this is a very old thing. In other ways, it feels familiar. I mean, does that sound right? Is it in some ways weird, in some ways familiar, or it's totally familiar or totally weird? How does it land for you?
By old, do you mean like the age of the text or
Yeah, the age of the
fact that I've
text.
read?
No, no,
Oh yeah, it is a little bit. Sorry. Go ahead.
a little bit weird.
Um, a little bit. It's not weird that I'm reading it because it's so old. I feel like even if it was written today, if it had the same text, it'd be the same.
Mhm.
But I think it's really cool to think about how old the Odyssey is, especially in its original language and how it's been translated. I get to read it, which is awesome. I'm so glad people are out there doing that.
Good. What do you like best about it, having finished this version?
Um, I what do I like best? I enjoy reading it in like the poetic way. I'm getting more into that now that I've read a little bit of the Iliad and the whole Odyssey.
Mhm.
It's not as strange as it was to me a couple months ago, which is good because I was able to understand a little bit more and
Mhm.
read it faster.
Mhm. Um, I guess one of the things that I wonder about is, so for me, I'm very struck by it. In some ways, familiar. I mean, just very concretely, do you like roast meat?
I love roast meat. Yes,
I would say it seems like
I love any kind of meat.
every two pages,
Yeah, there's a lot of meat.
a lot of meat, which is nice. And a lot of rosy fingered dawns as well. Uh,
Mhm.
and so
And
there's
golden thrones.
exactly all of that kind of things. And then at the same time, there are some things that are different, like the relationship with the gods. Um, both, of course, Odysseus and Athena. And then there's the thing about Penelope and Artemis. Um, you know, uh, what do you, and occasionally other gods, Zeus cracking the thunder a couple of times for an omen. Um, do you like, I mean, presumably you don't have any relationship with any gods, correct?
No, not that I
Okay.
know of. It'd be cool if I did, but no.
Well, actually, let's play with that. Be cool. So, do you think it's cool that Odysseus has this relationship with Athena?
Well, I mean, I think it's cool because Athena's helping or trying her best to help him, get home, even though it took him a really long time. She helped him with the suitors and planning, and he wouldn't have been able to disguise as a beggar
Mhm.
as he did without her help because that was like divine
Mhm.
help. I don't know another word, but um, she disguised him, and without her, things would have gone differently, I
Mhm.
think. And I'm obviously not in such a situation as his, but I guess when I said it would be cool to have a relationship with a god like that, it's cool to have some divine powers
Mhm.
used.
Maybe I'll speculate. Maybe human beings would love to have uh, some great power behind them. So when we go into our battles, whether it's jujitsu, wrestling, or slaughtering the suitors, we've got this power behind us. Um, I mean, maybe this is a mean way to put it, but do you think that, well, I guess, do you think the gods were real for the Greeks? Or do you think that there was a person called Odysseus at one point, thousands of years ago, and that he actually heard Athena? Or or do you think that this was fantasy or imagining? Or how do you understand all of that?
Um, well, for starters, I'm not exactly sure if Odysseus was a real person or if Trojan War actually happened. I know I've watched a TED video or something about how, they've been finding things like in the area where Troy would have been, so like it's possible that it actually could have happened. Um, Besides the Odyssey, I don't know of any firsthand accounts of Odysseus or him talking to Athena if we're talking about gods and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, my family isn't too religious, so I'm like originally I was reading all this as just a story and not like actual history.
Mhm.
But I realize now that it could be ancient history, even though it is like a story. I'm
Mhm.
not sure if anybody knows that this was actually real, but um, I think that the gods were real for the ancient Greeks, like how modern people believe in, God and other religions and things like that. I don't know if Zeus threw down thunder at every single point in time, like right on cue, or if it was a coincidence or not, or if that actually happened. It'd be cool if it actually happened,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure.
Mhm. Do you think that people back then were quite different from us in terms of, say, kind of consciousness and how they thought about the world?
Yeah, for sure. Well, today we like believe in science. We know, or at least we think we know different, like what's true or not, and why the world goes around, and things like that. But they believed that the world works for entirely different reasons, and it's cool to read about that because, like you said, every other page they're sacrificing whatever 300 heads of cattle or whatever. Um, and I've never actually seen that happen, so that's really cool to read about.
Mhm. And is it cool in the sense of just interesting to see different cultures and how they are? Or is it cool in some other way?
Um, well, it's cool for both. It's interesting to see how they worship their gods and how they react and respect them.
Mhm.
Also because I've never directly prayed to anything. I guess I don't know if that's what you would call it, but it's just cool to read about how they're interacting with everything in the world, even though they have different beliefs than me and everyone else.
Got it. I'm going to shift to a different aspect. Would you call this a love story or not a love story or nothing, no relationship to love?
There's a relationship to love, but I think it depends on what you define a love story as, because there's the love story of Odysseus and Penelope, and I don't know if it counts, but the love story between the suitors and Penelope, and um, a little bit with Helen and Menelaus, because you see them in the beginning, and it's coming back from the Trojan War, which in a sense is a love story, even though it's about a war. I don't know. When I think of a love story, I usually think of it being more direct and not in this context. But since the end goal is Odysseus coming back to his family and his wife and things like that, I guess you could count it as a love story.
So we'll go back to Odysseus and Penelope in a minute, but what is the case for describing the suitors in Penelope as a love story?
I guess I just threw that in there because it's a big part of the story, and even though it might not be for love, they just want the throne or whatever. You could say it is. Maybe some of them are actually in love with Penelope. Who knows? And I've never actually read like an adult love story or a romance book or whatever, so I wouldn't know.
Got
But
it.
that just came to mind when you asked.
I think you're probably being overly generous to the suitors. I don't see any
Yeah,
evidence of love.
probably.
But how about Odysseus and Penelope? In what way is that a love story, or is that not a love story?
Um, I think it is. I mean, I know that I don't really know. Well, I know they love each other, but I know that the way they got together is different than how people today would. Like, I think Odysseus was a courtier and a suitor of Penelope, and either her dad chose her to marry Odysseus.
Mhm.
A, because he's a prince of Ithaca, and B, I don't know, he's a good man. Some other reasons I
Mhm.
forget the whole story. But that's different than today, like dating and dating for love and things like that. I'm sure there was love between them in the beginning, at least a little bit, but he was still courting her partly for marriage reasons,
Mhm.
I think. But I think it still is counted as a love story because in the end, they loved each other.
Mhm.
Um, and Odysseus is making the hero journey back to his wife.
Mhm.
So
Got
I
it.
think so.
No, fair enough. And I see how, yeah, we don't know much actually about how they got together. I don't know much. But early on, we talked about how, the early books of the Odyssey foreshadowed the slaughter of the suitors. And you expressed some satisfaction at that coming. When it actually happened, did you enjoy Odysseus slaughtering the suitors?
Um, well, enjoy is a big word, but it was cool to see uh what the book had been building up to for so long actually come to truth, especially when it was all over and Penelope was talking to her maid and she was like, "Don't trick me, old woman," something like that. That was cool to see because she was like in disbelief, right?
Did
I think that was more satisfying than the actual killing.
got it. Was the killing excessively, it was very descriptive. Was it excessively gory and descriptive, or were you okay with that?
Since I'm not actually watching it, I'm just reading it. It wasn't, I could handle it. It wasn't that bad. I'm
Got
sure
it.
I could read more gory stuff.
Do you think the suitors deserved it?
Uh, it depends on what you think deserving means, because on one hand, they did deserve it. They were repeatedly asked by Telemachus and Penelope to go away, but they didn't. Even that one village elder said they brought it upon themselves, whatever. But on the other hand, maybe they don't deserve to die. Maybe they could have resolved it. On the third hand, or the other hand, if Odysseus let them live, then they'd probably find some way to try and like get back at him, or
Hmm.
murder him, or try and do something else. So that would have been way more complicated. Um, so I guess it depends. It's kind of a nice ending to the story. If you let him live, then all those other things could have happened.
Hmm.
But from one hand, they do deserve it. I think.
And it is tricky to kind of evaluate, old things by contemporary standards. It's kind of, I think our minds struggle with how do we, because it is bloody and gory, and it's pretty extreme by modern standards. Um,
Yeah.
no, anything else on the Odyssey before we move on?
Um. Oh, I thought I had one part that I thought was kind of interesting. When Odysseus was going back to Ithaca from Phoenicia, I think. Um, how they were at first like really open to travelers and things like that. Like they
Mhm.
treated Odysseus super well and brought him back home. But then Poseidon sunk their ship on the way back, and then they were like, "Yeah, we're never letting anybody else in again,"
Mhm.
which I thought was interesting because that means they respected Poseidon and saw that as a sign or something. But
Mhm.
I felt like it was also a little bit hasty. But I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
Got it. And if you study this in the future, I would say the whole relationship between gods and men and what exactly are the gods doing, and I think it's very interesting, and especially how seriously do we take the gods? Or some people think of the gods as almost something psychological. Uh, but yeah, I've probably read this 8 times or something like that, maybe 10, and every time I read it, it's a little bit different. And it's funny, this time for me, the biggest thing in a funny way was all the meat eating. I forgot that they're eating meat all the time. Um,
That's funny. Yeah, they are though.
uh, no,
They're
very
meaty.
cool. And by the way, I have been to Crete. And so when he was describing himself as having been stranded on Crete or living on Crete, being from Crete in the fake version of his story, it was cool because I've actually been to Crete to visualize all that. So someday you must go to Greece, okay?
I will promise.
In which case, we don't have to figure out now, but we should read something else together. Do you have anything that you would like to read together, or do you want to think about it and get back to me?
Ooh, I don't have any ideas right now, but I'd love to think about it.
Okay. Think about it and get back to me, and I look forward to reading something fun and interesting together, okay?
Got it. I will.
All right. Have a good day.